Hello, scrufftards, degenerates, and weirdos and freaks online. Welcome to the War Zone. I'm Scruffy, and this is Scruffy Tales. And Jesus Christ, I haven't made a video in a week. Been busy doing in real life stuff instead. I know, weird, right? Stuff going on in real life, strange. Anyway, so yeah, but now it's high time for high tide. I kind of messed up this intro. It's high time for another video, and we're gonna, of course, take a look at the Ukrainian collapse. The front lines are collapsing. The Russians are steamrolling all the way to Kyiv. As you imagine, I may have an opinion on this, but it is what the Vatniks are saying. It is what all the pro-Russian social media accounts are saying, that it's a collapsing Ukrainian front line. I have thoughts, but first let's head on over to take a look at I messed it up. I haven't done this in a week, so I'm a bit rusty. It is what it is. I'm not gonna edit it because, fuck you. You're gonna have to listen to me ramble about shit you don't even want to listen to. So yeah, I said it, didn't I? Okay, moving on. Before we take a look at all the maps, I just want to highlight this. If you're from Sweden, go down to the link below. It's a link to Apotea, and there you can help out by donating some cash to Apotea so they can put together these high quality trauma kits designed and filled with stuff that combat medics can use right on the front line in Ukraine whenever a soldier is wounded, right on the spot. And if you're outside of Sweden and if you have trouble using that link, you can always visit my Patreon and donate money to me, essentially, so that I will then, at the end of June, is the plan to take all the money that we gathered this way on Patreon to ship it over to Apotea to fund these trauma kits. These are super crucial, and Apotea has so far provided Ukraine with 750 of these trauma kits designed for combat medics to be used during battle on the front line in the trenches. This is something that saves lives. This is something that keeps Ukrainian soldiers alive. So please consider visiting Apotea and donate money, or if you can't make that work, consider going to my Patreon, and I will happily take your money. I will happily take your money, and then at the end of June, throw it at Apotea so that they can put together more of these very important trauma kits. Thank you. Right, so Andrew Perpetua's map. We got Kursk, we got things happening north of Kupiansk, and then a lot of stuff happening at Toretsk and Pokrovsk, and so we're gonna take a look at it. So let's zoom in here on Kursk, where you have a big Russian incursion at the moment. They are pushing hard. We're going back a couple of days here. You can see this is on the 23rd, moving ahead, and now boom, things are happening along the border. They push further along these valleys, securing more territory, and basically that's it. It's a decent incursion at the moment. And of course, Ukraine has said that Russia has 50,000 troops in Kursk, and they have just been waiting to unleash them. And this is not a surprise at all. If we move to the Ukraine control map and take a look, I mean, this is the area we're talking about with Kursk, Sumy Oblast, Russia pushing in. And all of these units, 50,000 troops, they have been here for a while. Remember that Ukraine pushed into Kursk. Russia allocated roughly 50,000 troops to the area and maintained that number as they pushed Ukraine out. So in January, Syrsky said that Russia had 60,000 troops in Kursk fighting the Ukrainians. Now, having pushed Ukraine out, these troops are obviously still here. roughly 50,000 of them. And they are now moving into Sumy Oblast. So this wasn't a big surprise. They didn't pop up out of nowhere. Ukraine has known that Russia's had 50,000 troops in Kursk for the past 10, 11 months. And they were more than likely prepared that once they did leave Kursk, that the Russian forces would try and follow them into Sumy. So, you know, I think this was expected. The Ukrainians realized that this would happen, and they have prepared for this eventuality. So that's what's happening here. Ukraine were fully aware that Russia had 50,000 troops and expected them to push in. So the question is, how far will Russia push? Will they just try and take some territory along the border, or will they make a stronger push to try and get close to Sumy, the city of Sumy? We'll have to wait and see. But I think Ukraine is ready and prepared to take on the Russian incursion here, or the Russian invasion out of Kursk. They knew this was a potential reality the moment they pushed into Kursk, that eventually Russia would push them out and more than likely would follow Ukraine into Kursk or into Sumy. And it's kind of interesting. I mean, Ukraine pushed in to Kursk to force Russia to allocate the resources into Russia instead of having them down in Ukraine. And the goal was to lock them in place. Now Ukraine has left Kursk, but they are still technically locking the Russian units in place, since the Russians are now on the offensive trying to push into Sumy. So technically, Ukraine is still locking all of these Russian units in place in Kursk, in Russia, instead of having to face them down within Ukraine proper. So, I mean, I've talked about this in multiple videos. This is basically the third stage or third phase of the Kursk incursion. The first phase was invade and grab territory. Second phase, hold for as long as possible while more than likely slowly being forced back towards the border. Now the third stage or phase is that Russia is now following Ukraine into Sumy, where Ukraine, I suspect, has prepared a lot of defensive lines and overlapping fields of fire, and pre-sighted everything for artillery and airstrikes and drone strikes. So that's what's going on up here. Jumping back, we can see here, going back a day on the 29th here, you can see Russia moving in to this corner of Ukraine, north of Kupiansk. We'll see if this is another attempt to get across the Oskil River and come down on the western side of the Oskil River, as Russia managed to do earlier this year when they pushed across at Dvorichna. Was it last year even? I forgot. I mean, they haven't really managed to do all that much after they initially crossed at Dvorichna. They've taken some territory west of the river. Let's use this to highlight here. Here you go. You can see the river here. They haven't gained all that much territory to the west of the Oskil River after those initial successes. They have bombed Kindrashivka. They've tried to push into Kindrashivka but failed on multiple occasions. So are they trying to move in on Kupiansk from north, or trying to push up towards Vovchansk and grab this entire corner? Who knows? It's slow going. Let's move down to Torets. We're going to be talking about this part of the battlefield in a moment, where the Ukrainian collapse is a fact. Is it? Not too sure. I'll explain why. Over here, you can see Russia is advancing southwest of Pokrovsk. They need to secure this line here. This is a highway, a logistical line that they want to secure. As you can see, it comes through Kharkiv and into Andriivka. Russia needs Bahatyr, and they need to push Ukraine away from this pocket to be able to utilize this road for logistical purposes. So that's the whole point of pushing westward here, to secure this logistical route here through Andriivka north to Novotroitsky. Ukraine is of course, fighting back, and Russia is having trouble at Bahatyr and Oleksivka. Russia has moved west, south of Bahatyr, contesting the town, but it does appear as if we still have Ukrainians in town. You can see a Russian drone strike in the north of town. Ukraine is still contesting Bahatyr, and Russia is struggling pushing into this town and reaching Oleksivka. If Ukraine can hold here, it makes it difficult for Russia to truly utilize Andrivka and the road going through it for logistical purposes. So they need this road to prepare for the eventual assault on Pokrovsk. I've talked about this multiple times. Now, let's head on over to the collapsing front line. Here is where the front line has collapsed and the Ukrainians are on the run and they can't stop anything from happening. Nah, I'm not too sure that's the situation, to be perfectly honest. Forgot to move ahead on the map here. You can see further advances from Russia north of Bahatyr. Anyway, Ukrainian collapse. Yeah, this push here essentially began a month ago on the 1st of May. If we move back to the 1st of May, this is it. And if we move back here, this is basically the situation. Russia was trying to push out to this highway here, and we're struggling. They have been struggling the entire year to make headway in this area. We can go back. Let's go back to 1st of January here. You can see, right? Not many gains throughout the year, but when we move, wrong way, April, May, 1st of May, it looks like this. And that is when this happens. The motorcycle assault straight through Ukrainian lines, 6-kilometer push, and they reach Novo-Olenivka. And now Russia can begin to unravel some of the Ukrainian positions because they get in behind and can outflank Ukrainian positions. And so throughout the month, they will now start to push up to the highway here and expand eastward as well. If we move ahead here, you can see how it goes, right? Boom. That's 1 month. That is what they managed to achieve in a month. And it looks impressive. It absolutely does. But if you take a look what they have achieved, it is moving from down here roughly to up here. So 10 kilometers in this line in 30 days. 10 kilometers in 30 days. That is not massively impressive. What the hell is it? Is it what, 300 to 350 meters per day that they're advancing? Right? I mean, if you're being pushed back 300 meters per day on average, that is not a collapsing front line. I'm just saying, right? Russia has operational initiative in this area between Toretsk and Myrnorod, this local operational area. Absolutely. Ukraine is on the back foot. They're being pushed back, but it's not a collapse. This is not a collapsing front line. Russia has the advantage. They are outmaneuvering the enemy. They are probably outshooting the enemy. They have the advantage. They have the initiative, momentum, and forcing Ukraine back. Absolutely. Collapsing front line? No. If it was a collapsing front line, Russia would be pushing through all the way to Novomykolaiv, whatever this town is called. And doing that, it would affect this front line, and they would fall back to avoid a larger encirclement. Obviously, this is not what's happening. So no, it's not collapsing front lines. Remember, Russia claimed the exact same when they were pushing through Avdiivka and heading for Ochrytine, that, the Ukrainian front lines were collapsing. Meanwhile, Ukraine was slowly moving, 100, 200 meters per day backwards. It's not a collapsing front line. It's a fighting withdrawal, like a controlled withdrawal. So front lines are not collapsing. It's just not a thing at this point, at least. What it did was allow Russia to pierce Ukrainian positions and then begin outflanking various Ukrainian towns and defensive positions. Let's take a look. Right, so jumping over to deep state, we have Pokrovsk, we have Toretsk, and we have the operational area in between these two cities where Russia is now having an edge on the Ukrainians. So roughly 1 month ago, the front line was something down here, like so, roughly. And Russia was struggling, pushing. They made several assaults that failed. Ukraine was holding the line essentially along this highway quite successfully. And then Russia launched that motorcycle attack straight out of Tarasivka towards Novoolenivka, pierced Ukrainian lines here and got through and established a presence at Novoolenivka, attacked Ukrainian positions in and around this town and or village, and took trench lines and what have you. Immediately following this successful assault, Russia began advancing towards Novopoltavka and Malinivka. Right? They went for Malinivka first. They went after taking Novoolenivka, and then they made the push straight into Novopoltavka. So they isolated this town by moving up on the flanks and then pushed in into the town itself. And later on, establishing this location, you could see Russia moving out to Oleksandropil and beyond to Soria, as well as coming up here this way. Now, what happened here is maneuver warfare, usually done with infantry fighting vehicles and tanks, but Russia successfully managed to conduct maneuver warfare with motorbikes. So what they did essentially was the following. They pierced enemy lines, maneuver warfare, blitzkrieg. From here, they now needed to secure the breach and started to fan out to secure the breach so that Ukraine could not come in on the flanks and, cut them off and isolate the Russians up here. What the Russians successfully did was instead expand after the breach had been successful, and they are now moving in troops and reinforcements and what have you, exploiting the breach and pushing out and grabbing more territory. So this is essentially what they did. It is classic blitzkrieg. Push through, and then you have an area that is somewhat isolated and in danger of being outflanked and overrun, and Russia could push in and grab it. The same thing happened over here in this area where we saw Ukraine falling back and abandoning a large section of ground after Russia came through Oleksandropil and then coming up here. All of a sudden you have a large area that is in danger of being encircled, and Ukraine falls back to avoid being trapped. And Ukraine had to abandon Novopoltavka as well because they were not able to push through and assist from the flanks. They only had one way in, and Russia more than likely took care of that supply line with drones and artillery and isolating Novopoltavka in that way. That allowed them to push in. So what you're seeing is classic maneuver warfare that was made, that Russians managed to pull off using motorbikes instead of infantry fighting vehicles in this case, pushing through, establishing a breach, expanding the breach, and then began outflanking and threatening Ukrainian positions with encirclements. You can see it down here as well. I mean, you have Russians pushing up this way. They are in Malinivka. Now you have this area here that is in danger of being surrounded or outflanked. They are outflanked and being in danger of being encircled. So it wouldn't surprise me if this area here will fall back eventually as well. Wrong color. So that they will fall back eventually as well. This is modern warfare. This is what you want to try and achieve. And you do it with speed, aggression, and firepower. And Russia proved here with this move that you can overcome static positions with speed, aggression, and firepower. And you just need the means to do so. So this war has been grinding down the Russians' ability to conduct maneuver warfare. They're losing infantry fighting vehicles and tanks left and right, like you wouldn't believe. But now they've found a way to essentially overcome that obstacle, that is the drone coverage and minefields, managed to push through, and from here, from Novolenivka, they could begin to slowly unravel Ukrainian positions. Now, this doesn't mean that motorbikes will be the new way to conduct warfare in the future. Anti-drone weapons and anti-drone radar and anti-drone everything will be developed in time for the next war. So drones will not play as significant a part in that war as in this war, obviously. So no one knows how the next war will play out, obviously. But I mean, Western powers are preparing to face the drone threat like you wouldn't believe. And so infantry fighting vehicles will more than likely conduct these types of assaults in the future. What it is an indication of is that speed, aggression, firepower will overcome static defenses. If you do get past the static defenses, then they're up shit creek. They can't do anything about it, and you can begin to slowly unravel static positions once you get past them, get in behind them, and cause trouble. So what is the point of all of this? Well, I've talked about this before. I am of the opinion that Russia is after Shakova. You have multiple bridges at Shakova crossing this river here. So Russia, I'm thinking, is heading for Shakova in order to get across the river and get in north of Pokrovsk and Myrnorod and cutting supply lines. People are talking about this salient here being a threat to Konstantinivka. I don't think Konstantinivka is the main goal of this push here. It's just it's part of this massive urban area coming down from Sloviansk to Kramatorsk, going through a dozen towns and then ending with Konstantinivka. Pushing in here, it's gonna demand so much of Russian resources, fighting in Konstantinivka and then trying to push on. I mean, remember, it took them forever to take Bakhmut, took them forever to push into Chasiv Yar, months to take tiny Avdiivka. They haven't even begun pushing at Pokrovsk and Myrnorod yet, for good reason. Highly built up areas, very dangerous when you're the attacker to push in. And this place here, that's 10 times worse than Bakhmut or Pokrovsk. Russia might try and push up to these rivers and lakes here in order to gain an advantage in and around Toretsk, so that they can then push up in this area here around Yelelivka and maybe assist Chasiv Yar. That might be part of the plan coming up here in the center. But I think the main objective is to reach Shakova, with secondary objective being to push up to this big lake here and helping out at Toretsk, so you can push through Toretsk and eventually move this section of the front line closer to Konstantinivka. But I think the main push here is to head for Shakova. They've spent so many days and months and thousands of troops pushing up here around Pokrovsk to try and cut supply lines leading into these two cities. And they're moving here to free up supply lines leading up to the front line just outside of Pokrovsk. For them to then switch direction to start all over with Konstantinivka and all the towns behind it seems very strange, after spending so much time and so much resources on reaching Pokrovsk. Why then just abandon Pokrovsk to start all over trying to reach Konstantinivka. It seems very strange. I think this push is mainly heading for Shakove to continue the encirclement of Pokrovsk and Myrnorod in preparation for the final push into these two cities. But importantly, this is not a collapsing Ukrainian front line. This is not what a collapsing front line looks like. Russia is slowly advancing 300, 350 meters per day over the past month. I mean, when you total it up, yes, then you do get quite a ways. But I mean, they started out down here somewhere at this crossroad, and they have essentially pushed beyond the crossroad. I mean, take a look. It's not that impressive when you think about it. What they did manage was push out of Tarasivka to Alexandropol, and from here come in behind Ukrainian positions down here in this pocket, and then that forced Ukraine to fall back before they were encircled and cut off. So this, I mean, it makes it look dramatic, but it's still controlled from the Ukrainian side. They left in controlled fashion. So while Russia does have operational initiative and they have momentum, it's not a massive, overwhelming onslaught where the Russians are just steamrolling through Ukrainian lines to, coming up behind them and forcing entire sections of the front line to just fall back to avoid being encircled. That is not what's happening. It's not even happening down here where they're now at Horikove and pushing in on Bahatyr, right? Ukraine is still holding this center. So this is not a collapsing front line, not even down here. So I mean, it's Russia has the initiative. Absolutely, no one's denying it. They have manpower, firepower, they have initiative, they have more resources currently than Ukraine. But Ukraine is still holding on pretty effectively, considering all things. So no, this is not a collapsing front line. That's just bullshit. And now a tiny nugget for the Swedish viewers. We have here, we are now at Pokrovsk, Myrnorod, and this is where Russia has begun this push that we're talking about, this major push in the summer offensive that is not a collapsing Ukrainian front line. This unit here is the 36th Marine Brigade. They were a couple of months ago deployed up at Kursk, here at Basivka and Loknia. And I noticed a couple of weeks ago that they had been redeployed, that they were no longer here, and that they were in fact down here. When I first noticed them, they were actually positioned over in this area around Shevchenko, Persia here. But now they have been geolocated to operate in this area for some reason, or for whatever reason. And why is the 36th Marine Brigade of interest to Swedes? Well, this is the unit that is operating the PBV 302s, the Swedish armored personnel carrier designed in the 60s and that were given to Ukraine earlier this year. Every single one of those vehicles were handed over to Ukraine earlier this year. And this is the PBV 302, the Swedish APC that was originally intended to be an IFV back in the 60s. 20 millimeter autocannon capable of transporting troops that jump out the back and everything, all that good stuff. And I made a couple of videos on it talking about the PBV 302 more in detail, and also comparing it to the M113, the American APC. Some differences between them and what they're good at and what they bring to the battlefield, essentially. So I'll provide links to these videos down below. But this, all you Swedes, this vehicle is right on the front line where Russia is currently pushing Ukraine back ever so slightly, a couple of 100 meters per day. So yeah, a bit rusty, and I kind of messed up the intro, and yeah, it is what it is. I'll see if I get more videos done tomorrow and next week. You never know. But yeah, it's not a collapsing front line. Yeah, Russia has operational initiative. Ukrainians are conducting a fighting withdrawal in a controlled manner. Russia is not. The Ukrainians are. Ukraine is not experiencing a collapsing front line. Not a thing yet. Maybe in a day or two. You never know, but not at the moment. Anyway, that's gonna have to be it. Yeah, Ukraine knew 50,000 troops would be in Kursk, and they expected those 50,000 troops to push into Sumy. Ukraine has hopefully prepared for this eventuality. And yeah, what else is there to say at this point? Except go på marsch, Ukraine, and give them hell.